They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine was served at absolute zero. I stood on the stage of Yale Law School, the valedictorian, the highest honor at one of the most prestigious universities on the planet. The dean called my name, Diana Cross, summa cum laude. Applause thundered, cameras flashed. It was the moment every student dreams of, a moment of pure triumph. But as I looked down at the front row, I saw exactly what I expected. 3 empty chairs, reserved, vacant, dust motes dancing in the spotlight, where my family should have been. My mother, Linda, my father, Robert, and my brother, Kyle. They weren't late. They weren't stuck in traffic. I felt a vibration in the pocket of my gown, not a text, a priority banking alert. I pulled my phone out right there on the podium. The dean paused, confused. The crowd whispered, I didn't care. I looked at the screen. Alert, wire transfer completed. Amount $50,000. Recipient, Kyle Cross, Prestige Events, $50,000. My entire savings from my clerkships, gone in a single heartbeat. They didn't just skip my graduation, they robbed me. They drained my account to fund a party for Kyle, the golden child, the 25-year-old aspiring influencer who needed fireworks for his brand launch. I looked up at the crowd. I didn't cry. I didn't choke back tears. My pulse didn't even speed up. Instead, a slow, cold smile spread across my face because my parents made a fatal calculation. They thought I was just the quiet, dutiful daughter, the family ATM, the good girl who would never make a scene. They didn't know that the account they just drained was a honeypot. They didn't know that by taking that specific sum, they hadn't just robbed me. They had triggered a default clause in a contract they didn't even know existed. They thought they were funding a party. What they actually did was sign their own eviction notice. I closed my phone, I accepted my diploma, and as I walked off that stage, I wasn't a graduate anymore. I was the executioner. And the trial was about to begin. To understand why I didn't scream, why I didn't call the police immediately, you have to understand the architecture of the Cross family. It wasn't built on love. It was built on a parasitic supply chain, and for 24 years, I was the host. My brother Kyle was the son. He was loud, charismatic, and utterly incompetent. He failed 3 colleges, wrecked 4 cars, and started 6 businesses that were really just expensive hobbies funded by mommy and daddy. I was the shadow, the spare, the daughter who was expected to be perfect, silent, and serviceable. I fixed the Wi-Fi, I did the taxes, I planned the vacations I wasn't invited to. I learned early that love in my house was a transaction I couldn't afford. So, I stopped trying to earn their affection. I started earning capital. At 16, while Kyle was out drinking and crashing the family sedan, I was in the school library teaching myself high-frequency trading algorithms. I didn't have friends. I had charts. I had futures. I had leverage. By the time I was 20, I had quietly amassed a portfolio worth more than my parents' entire net worth. But I never told them. Silence is a weapon, and I was sharpening it every single day. They knew I had some money from my scholarships and computer stuff, and they felt entitled to every cent. Diana, transfer $2,000 for the mortgage. We're short this month. Diana, your brother needs a lawyer for his DUI. Family helps family. Diana, don't be selfish. Good daughters help their parents. I paid every single time. I paid because it was easier than listening to my mother's weeping manipulation or my father's red face shouting about duty. But I didn't just hand over the cash. I kept a ledger. Every dollar they took, every birthday they forgot, which was most of them, every time they looked at me with that mix of disappointment and utility, I wrote it all down. But then, about 2 years ago, I changed my strategy. I realized that feeding a parasite only makes it stronger. You have to own the host. When my parents fell behind on their mortgage payments, because they bought Kyle a new G-Wagon to boost his image, the bank initiated foreclosure proceedings. They were terrified. They hid it from the neighbors, terrified of losing their status in our gated community. That's when Cerberus Holdings LLC stepped in, an anonymous investment firm. They didn't know Cerberus Holdings was me. They didn't know the scary new lender who bought their distressed mortgage debt for pennies on the dollar was the daughter eating cereal in their kitchen. I became their landlord. I became their creditor. I bought the lien on Kyle's car. I bought the debt on my mother's maxed out credit cards. For 2 years, I have owned the very air they breathe. I sent them official notices from the management. I raised their interest rates legally. I demanded strict compliance. They hated this faceless corporation that squeezed them dry. They would complain about it at dinner, cursing the greedy banks, all while demanding I pay the greedy bank. For them, it was a beautiful, twisted irony. They were abusing the daughter to pay the landlord, never realizing they were the same person. But I had one rule, one clause in the mortgage contract I drafted myself, the good faith clause. It stated that any evidence of criminal activity or financial fraud committed by the tenants against the principal owner would result in immediate acceleration of the debt and instant eviction. They never read the fine print. They never do. So when they hacked my old student's savings account today, the one account they still had access to from my childhood, and stole that $50,000, they didn't just steal my money. They violated the good faith clause. They broke the seal. I stood outside the law school, staring at the notification. I wasn't just a disappointed daughter anymore. I was Cerberus, and the gates of hell were about to open. I didn't go to a bar to drown my sorrows. I didn't go back to my lonely apartment to weep into a pillow. I went to my car, a matte black Audi RS7 that my parents didn't know I owned. They thought I took the bus. I sat in the leather driver's seat, the engine purring like a caged tiger, and opened my laptop. I needed to know exactly what my $50,000 was buying. It didn't take long. My brother Kyle has the digital footprint of the toddler. He was already live streaming on Instagram. Yo, what's up, guys? We are live from the Cross Mansion. Pre-launch party for KC Lifestyle. We got catering. We got DJ Venom. We got the whole squad. Big things coming. I watched the screen, my face illuminated by the cold blue light. The Cross Mansion. My house. The house I held the deed to. The house they were currently trashing. The camera panned around. The backyard was transformed. White tents, an open bar, a stage. It looked like a wedding for a Kardashian. And there, holding court in the center of it all, were Linda and Robert. My mother was wearing a dress that probably cost $3,000. My father was holding a scotch, laughing with some local politicians. Then I saw the comments on the stream rolling in. User 29, where's your sister? Didn't she graduate today? Kyle laughed, reading it out loud. Diana, nah man, she didn't come. You know how she is. She thinks she's too good for parties. She's probably studying or something. Boring. My mother chimed in, stepping into the frame, putting a hand on Kyle's shoulder. We invited her, of course, but Diana is just so selfish. She doesn't care about family milestones. Today is about Kyle. Selfish. They stole $50,000 from me an hour ago, and they were calling me selfish to a live audience of strangers. I shut the laptop. The silence inside the car was deafening. They weren't just celebrating Kyle. They were celebrating their perceived freedom. They thought they had pulled a fast one. They thought they had extracted the last bit of value from the spare child and discarded her. I put the car in gear. The drive to the estate usually took 40 minutes. I made it in 20. I didn't park in the driveway. It was filled with the leased BMWs and Mercedes of Kyle's sycophant friends. I parked down the street in the shadows of the oak trees lining the road. I walked up to the perimeter fence. The music was thumping, bass that rattled my ribcage. I could hear the clinking of glass, the performative laughter of people who love free alcohol. I stood by the service gate. The security keypad glowed red. My parents had changed the code last week to keep me out. They explicitly told me, "Don't bother coming by this weekend. We have private business." They thought a changed code would stop me. They forgot who installed the security system. They forgot who pays the subscription for the remote access. I pulled out my phone. I didn't enter a code. I opened the Cerberus admin app. One tap. System override. The gate clicked open silently. I stepped onto the property. I didn't walk into the light. Not yet. I stayed in the tree line, watching them. My mother was toasting Kyle. My father was signing a check for the caterer, using a credit book that I knew was linked to the equity of the house. My equity. They were feasting on a corpse. My corpse. Or so they thought. I looked down at my watch. 8:59 p.m. I adjusted my graduation hood. I smoothed the black fabric of my gown. I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to see the valedictorian they abandoned. But I wasn't carrying a speech. I was carrying a thick manila envelope. And inside wasn't a diploma. It was a writ of immediate possession. The party was about to die. I stood behind a marble pillar near the pool house, invisible in the gloom. To my left, a waiter hurried past with a tray of Wagyu sliders. To my right, Kyle was taking a selfie with a girl who looked bored, flashing a peace sign while holding a bottle of Ace of Spades champagne. That bottle cost $600. My $600. I looked at the opulent waist around me, the ice sculpture of a K melting into the pool, the hired dancers, the sheer, unadulterated arrogance of it all. It wasn't just a party, it was a bonfire, and they were burning my future to keep themselves warm. I opened the manila envelope. Inside was the document I had notarized 3 hours ago, immediately after the bank alert hit my phone. Notice of default and immediate lease termination. Grounds, breach of good faith, grand larceny. You see, when I bought their debt, I didn't just become their lender. I restructured the ownership. Technically, on paper, I own the house. They are tenants with a lease-to-own agreement that I created. It looked standard. It looked like a lifeline from a benevolent investment firm, but Clause 14, Section B was very specific. Any act of theft, fraud, or financial misappropriation committed by the tenant against the landlord or the landlord's agents shall result in the immediate forfeiture of all equity and rights to the property. By stealing from my personal account, the account linked to the landlord's auto-pay system, they hadn't just committed a crime. They had voided their lease. They had forfeited the house. They were trespassing. Right now. I set my laptop on a patio table in the dark corner. I connected to the house's smart home main server. Username, admin, password, payback. Access granted. I looked at the dashboard. I had control of everything. The lights, the sound system, the security gates, the sprinklers, even the electronic locks on the doors. I watched my father laughing, clapping a man on the back, looking like the lord of the manor. He had no idea that the ground beneath his feet had already dissolved. He was falling, and he didn't even know it yet. I checked the bank transfer one last time. The money was gone, irretrievable for now, but the asset was mine. I could have walked out there and screamed. I could have thrown a punch. But that's what children do. That's what Kyle would do. I don't throw tantrums. I execute orders. I hovered my cursor over the main breaker override button, then I moved it to the audio output mic override function. I waited for the song to end. The bass dropped. The crowd cheered. Kyle grabbed the microphone on stage, sweating, manic, high on attention. Yo, is everyone having a good time? We are just getting started. This is the Cross Empire, baby. I smiled. The Empire has fallen, Kyle, I whispered. I hit enter. The effect was instantaneous and violent. 1 second, the bass was shaking the windows and Kyle was screaming about his legacy. The next second, silence. Absolute crushing silence. The speakers cut out with a dying pop. The fairy lights, the expensive landscape uplighting, the pool heaters. Everything died at once. The backyard plunged into pitch darkness, save for the confused glow of 100 smartphone screens. Yo? Hello? Kyle tapped the microphone. Dead. Dad? What the hell? Did we blow a fuse? I watched from the shadows, the only person in the yard who wasn't panicking. Robert, my mother shrieked. Fix it. The live stream is dark. My father was already fumbling with his phone, trying to call the electric company. I saw the screen light up his sweating face. It's not working, he hissed. My phone, no service. Of course not. I had suspended the family plan 3 minutes ago. Then came the second wave of the attack, the financial decapitation. The head caterer, a man named Giovanni, who didn't look like he had a sense of humor, clicked on a heavy flashlight and marched over to my father. The beam cut through the dark like an interrogation light. "Mr. Cross," Giovanni said, his voice loud in the sudden quiet. "We just tried to run the final authorization for the bar tab. The card was declined." My father laughed nervously. "Impossible. That's a platinum Amex. Run it again." "We did, sir. 3 times. It says, account closed, fraud alert. We need a new form of payment immediately, or we pack up the bar right now." "Fraud?" My mother stepped into the light, clutching her pearls. "That's ridiculous. We are the Crosses. We don't have fraud." Actually, a voice boomed across the yard. "You do." I hit the second key on my laptop. Override, security floodlights. The emergency security lights slammed on. These weren't the soft, warm party lights from before. These were high-intensity, cold white LED floods designed to blind intruders. They washed over the patio, turning the scene into something that looked like a prison yard break. Everyone froze. Guests shielded their eyes. Kyle dropped his dead microphone. I stepped out from behind the pillar. I was still wearing my black graduation gown. The velvet stripes of the doctorate hood glinted under the harsh light. I walked slowly toward the pool, my heels clicking sharply on the slate tiles. "Diana?" My mother squinted, her hand over her eyes. "What are you doing here? You look. Why are you wearing that dress?" "It's an academic gown, Mother," I said, my voice projecting clearly without a mic. "It's what you wear when you graduate summa cum laude, but you wouldn't know that. You were too busy spending my tuition money on sliders." The crowd murmured. Phones turned toward me. Kyle's live stream was still running on battery, capturing everything. "Diana, get out of here," Kyle shouted, trying to regain control of his brand. "You're ruining the vibe. You're embarrassing us. You jealous bitch." I reached the center of the patio. I looked at Giovanni, the caterer. "Pack it up, Giovanni," I said calmly. "They can't pay you. The $50,000 they transferred this morning, I just froze it. And the cards, I canceled them." You did what?" My father stepped forward, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. "You ungrateful little, that is my money. I will have you arrested." I smiled. "A sharp, jagged thing. Call them," I challenged. "Oh, wait, you can't. Your phone doesn't work." I pulled a folded document from my envelope. "But don't worry, Dad. I didn't come to argue. I came to collect." I threw the document onto the table next to the melting ice sculpture. "This isn't a party anymore," I said, looking around at the terrified guests. "It's an eviction." My father snatched the document off the wet table. His hands were shaking so hard the paper rattled like a dry leaf in a gale. He squinted at the text under the harsh floodlights. "Cerberus Holdings." He looked up, sweat beading on his forehead. "What is this? I rent from an investment firm. We have a contract. You don't have the authority." I laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. "Read the signature line at the bottom, Dad. The managing partner." He looked down. He froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Diana Cross. "Surprise," I said. "I am Cerberus, the 3-headed dog guarding the gates of hell, and you've been living in my kennel for 2 years. My mother let out a strangled gasp. You own this house." "But what we pay rent." "You pay interest," I corrected, "on the debt I bought to save you from bankruptcy. Debt you never thanked me for." "But that's not the point, Linda. The point is Clause 14. I stepped closer to Kyle, who was still holding his phone, the live stream capturing every second of their humiliation. The comments were scrolling so fast they were a blur. Number sign landlord Diana was already trending. Clause 14, I repeated, looking directly into the camera lens. Theft of funds by the tenant from the landlord constitutes a breach of contract. When you stole that $50,000 this morning, my graduation money, my savings, my life, you didn't just rob your daughter. You robbed your landlord. It was a loan. My mother shrieked, lunging toward me. We were going to pay it back after Kyle's brand took off. You're his sister. You should support him. Kyle's brand is a Ponzi scheme built on my credit score. I snapped. I turned to my brother. Give me the keys. Kyle blinked, looking like a deer in headlights. What? The G-Wagon, I said, holding out my hand. The lease is under Cerberus Holdings. You missed 3 payments, and your cosigner, me, just revoked privileges. Give me the keys, Kyle. Now. Kyle backed away. It's my image. You can't take my car in front of my followers. It's not your car. It's a stolen asset. I turned to the security guards I had hired, who were waiting by the gate, obscured by the darkness until now. I signaled them. 2 large men in tactical gear stepped into the light. Possess the vehicle, I ordered. As the guards moved toward the driveway, my father lost it. He lunged at me, grabbing the lapels of my graduation gown. I raised you. I fed you, you ungrateful parasite. You owe us everything. You're a girl. You should be taking care of this family, not destroying it. I didn't flinch. I didn't push him back. I just looked down at his hands. Take your hands off me, I said softly, or I add assault to the list of charges I'm filing with the sheriff, who was already on his way. Robert released me, stumbling back, defeated by the absolute coldness in my eyes. You want to talk about what I owe you? I asked, my voice rising so every guest could hear. I paid the mortgage since I was 19. I paid for the groceries. I paid for Kyle's rehab. I paid for this suit you're wearing, Dad. I pointed at his wrist. That Rolex. I paid the credit card bill for that last month. Take it off, Diana, he whispered. Take it off. He unclasped the watch, his dignity crumbling with every link. He placed it on the table. You didn't raise a daughter, I said, looking at the 3 of them huddled together. You raised an investment portfolio. You treated me like a bond that you could cash out whenever you needed money. Well, the market just crashed. I pointed to the gate. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises. You can take your clothes and your personal toiletries. Anything purchased with funds from the stolen account stays. The furniture stays. The electronics stay. Where will we go? My mother sobbed, clutching Kyle. It's midnight. How can you do this to your own mother? I don't know, I said, turning my back on them. Maybe you can stay at a hotel. Oh, wait, I canceled the cards. I walked toward the house to oversee the lock change. Try to shelter downtown, I called back over my shoulder. I hear they have vacancies. The police arrived 10 minutes later. My mother naturally thought they were her saviors. She ran to the squad car, mascara running down her face like war paint, pointing a trembling finger at me. Officer, arrest her! She's manic! She's stolen our home. She's impersonating a landlord. The officer, a veteran sergeant named Miller, who looked like he'd seen enough rich people drama to last a lifetime, walked past her. He walked straight to me. Miss Cross? He asked. That's me, I said, handing him the deed, the eviction order, and my ID. Here is the proof of ownership and the trespassing notice. Miller scanned the documents with a flashlight. He nodded once. He turned to my father. Sir, you have 5 minutes to vacate the property before I arrest you for criminal trespass. This is a lawful eviction. But I know the sheriff, my father sputtered. The sheriff doesn't override a deed, sir. Move along. I stood by the gate and watched. It was the most satisfying quiet of my life. They left with 3 heavy-duty trash bags filled with clothes. That was it. The legacy of the Cross family, reduced to plastic sacks dragged across the asphalt. Kyle was crying, actually crying, not because he was homeless, but because he had left his ring light inside. As they reached the end of the driveway, my mother turned back one last time. You'll rot in hell for this, Deanna, she screamed. You have no family. You have nothing. You'll never be happy. I didn't answer. I just hit the button on my remote, and the iron gates slammed shut. Clang. In the weeks that followed, I didn't move into the mansion. I didn't want it. The walls stank of their hypocrisy. Instead, I hired an estate liquidator. I sold everything, the furniture, the art, the electronics, even my father's golf clubs. I sold the house to a tech developer for $2.5 million, cash. But here is the twist. The part they never saw coming. I didn't keep the money. I took the proceeds from the sale, every single cent of their legacy, and I started a foundation, the Forgotten Daughter Grant. It provides full-ride scholarships and housing for young women who have been financially abused or abandoned by their families. I made sure the press release went viral. I made sure the local paper ran a story on it. Valedictorian donates estranged parents' estate to charity. My parents saw it. I know they did. They are currently living in a one-bedroom motel on the outskirts of town. My father works stock at a grocery store, the only job he could get with his fraud record. My mother cleans houses for the very women she used to gossip about at the country club. And Kyle, his brand imploded. The live stream of him crying and getting his car repossessed became a meme. He's offline now, working a fryer at a burger joint. As for me, I'm in New York now. I work for a hedge fund that appreciates a woman who knows how to spot a liability and cut it loose. I don't have a family photo on my desk. I have a framed copy of that eviction notice. It reminds me of the most important lesson I ever learned in business. When an asset becomes toxic, you don't try to fix it, you liquidate it.